is on Sultai control. Alan Shupe is on Sneak and Show. Both players are 9-2, and a win here puts them in very good position to make a run at the top 8.
And this version of Sneak and Show is something that's been picking up steam. I know that it won one of the last 2 classics, I believe, on the Star City Tour, and it's pretty interesting. It's a lot more resilient to some of the typical Sneak and Show hate that you see. It isn't just cold to Caracas and Fire Extinguisher Revoker. So,
yeah, it gives up some consistency of the traditional Sneak and Show list, but makes up for in options and just raw power. It is just much more powerful. Your show and tells are much better than any other deck show and tells. All right, so we're going to have a Flooded Strand is going to find an island for Alan. He's going to go fall to 19 and cast Ponder. Let's see if he wants to keep these or ship them.
And so in this situation, basically the way the matchup is going to play out is Seek and Show being the combo deck is the aggressor. Andrew Tenjum is basically playing as the control deck, and his most meaningful forms of interaction are going to be Vendilion Click, Force of Will, and Hymn to Torak, which aren't actually a whole lot of spells. That said, Baleful Strix can do a little bit of work. Jace the Mind Sculptor, or excuse me, Liliana the Veil can also do a little bit of work. But I think for the most part, you're going to see Andrew Tenjum be a little bit of a dog game 1, but probably get a lot more options in his sideboard and might even be able to swing the matchup in his favor at that point.
All right, well, it looks like Alan has a copy of Beseiju on turn 2, which means that this game could be over as early as next turn. Andrew is going to fall to 19, sacking his Misty Rainforest for a Bayou, and we might see a Hymn to Torak here.
And does Andrew have a white border Misty Rainforest?
He does. You can. Some people have scratched off the black border.
We gotta talk to him about that.
All right, well, Alan is going to force a will this Hymn to Torak by pitching a Cunning Wish, and what he's saying here is, I'm willing to still get hymned. I'm just going to pick the 2 cards that I'm discarding.
And the Beseiju main is rather interesting. That's not something we see too often, but it's a very powerful card in the Sneak and Show deck because really all it needs to do is resolve Show and Tell.
Especially in this version with the Omniscience.
Yeah.
Show and Tell is most of the time going to be game over. So Alan's going to fall to 17, cracking his Scalding Tarn. He's going to find a Volcanic Island. Let's see if we're going to have a copy of Show and Tell here. 1, 2, 3. Alan's going to fall to 15 for that Beseiju.
And this could be game.
Beseiju does make instants and sorceries uncounterable if the mana is used for them.
Force of Will is not going to do anything here.
Show and Tell is not going to be able to get countered here. All right, so we've got a Vendilion Click and an Omniscience.
And this is kind of nice because anything sorcery speed that Alan would want to cast, like Grizzlebrand, Andrew's going to have an opportunity to take that out of the hand. So that's quite nice.
Yeah, so he can ship the Grizzlebrand here, but Alan does get a free draw at that point. Plus, he still has Sneak Attack in his hand.
And once this Sneak Attack hits play, Andrew has no way of dealing with it. So he's going to have to really be afraid of the top of Alan's deck.
All right, well, Alan's going to cast a Sneak Attack and then just pass the turn back to Andrew. So let's see what he can cobble together here. You don't lose very often with an Omniscience on the battlefield, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Andrew will start off with a Brainstorm. And that Vendilion Click is a 1-of in Andrew's deck.
Yeah, he got really lucky. Having a 1-of in a situation rather than a 0-of, though, is infinitely different.
Yeah, I keep saying it, but you can't draw perfects if you don't put them in your deck.
It's true. It's a great saying.
Right, so Andrew's going to resolve his Brainstorm. He's going to crash in for 3 with that Vendilion Click. He's going to drop Alan down to 12, so he does only have 4 turns here to find an answer.
Yeah, Alan doesn't have a whole lot of time. He's got some great top decks. He also has some really bad top decks. He can draw just another Omniscience, another Sneak Attack, which wouldn't do anything, random mana sources. If he draws a Brainstorm, it can be a little scary. Whether or not he locks himself out of the draw. And now without access to red mana, he can't cast anything or put anything to play off Sneak Attack, but with Omniscience he would be able to just cast a Grizzlebrand or Emrakul should he draw it.
And so Vendilion Click is going to take him down to 9. Andrew is going to him away the last 2 cards in Alan's hand. It's a Sneak Attack and a Scalding Tarn. It's going to draw for the turn and pass. Andrew is just 3 turns away from closing this out.
And if Andrew manages to steal this, that would be phenomenal, because game 1 is the game that he's supposed to lose.
Yeah, if Alan had put Gristlebrand onto the battlefield instead of the Omniscience, this game would be much different.
Yeah. And if Alan wants to cast something like a Grizzlebrand or Emrakul, Andrew does have the opportunity to just counter it.
Well, Emrakul can't be countered.
Right, yeah.
Gristlebrand can, and so can cantrips. Alan's going to brick again, pass the turn back to Andrew.
And Alan's going to have one more turn. Can Andrew Tenjum steal this match with the one of Vendilion Click that showed up at the perfect time?
He's going to crash down to 3, cast another Brainstorm. Well, he did just find a copy of Force of Will, so he will be able to counter a non-Emrakul card here if Alan happens to draw it.
All right, here we go. What's on the top of your deck?
All right, Alan, let's see what you got. Oh, and he just finds
scoops
nothing.
it up.
So we see Alan Shupe loses this game
that.
after putting an Omniscience onto the battlefield with Show and Tell on turn 3. Andrew Tenjum is going to sneak in the back door and steal this one out of Alan's pocket. Andrew's going to take game 1 on Sultai control against Sneak and Show. Let's take a look at the player sideboards and see what options they might have here.
You know, you can't win an open without getting lucky.
No, you can't. All right, so Alan has 1 Intuition, 1 Release the Ants, 1 Surgical Extraction, 1 Red Elemental Blast, a Wipe Away, a Beseju, a Coastal X Return, 1 Firemind's Foresight, 1 Trickbind, 1 Flusterstorm, 1 Through the Breach, 3 copies of Blood Moon, and 1 Sudden Shock. How do we think Alan's going to sideboard?
I don't think he's going to dilute his deck a whole lot. The cards that I like are the Red Elemental Blasts and the Blood Moons. I think the Blood Moons are going to be the most effective. Andrew has a lot of discard, so he might not want to bring in the Red Elemental Blast, but there's a good chance that he does.
Now on Andrew's side, we have 2 Disfigure, 2 Golgari Charm, 2 Nihil Spellbomb, 2 Pithy Needle, 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Sylvan Library, 2 Thoughtseize, a Toxic Deluge, and a Vendilion Click. How do we think he's going to sideboard?
So Andrew has a lot to sideboard. I think he's going to bring in the Golgari Charms to deal with Omniscience and Sneak Attack. I think he's going to bring in Pithing Needle to name Sneak Attack. Spell Pierce is also great against combo decks. Sylvan Library, just to make sure he doesn't run out of gas. And Thoughtseize and Vendilion Click are also going to be a great way to attack Alan's hand.
I agree with that. Vendilion Click in particular is a very good card.
Yeah, as we saw.
I like that card in general.
Yeah.
And I also like puns that are made about these types of cards. So at one point we had Penguillion Click with our creature collection. We also have some new sweet ones that we're going to be looking at here for the StarCityGames.com creature collection. So Snipcaster Mage is one of the current ones. You can get playmat, sleeves, and player bundles. When we come back to the booth and you get to see Andrew and I again, we do have that Snipcaster Mage pin on that you can get through game night. But go.starcitygames.com/creature collection for the Snipcaster Mage and all the accessories. And we also have the Fruit Bat. So we have playmat, sleeves, and player bundles available for this one. Go.starcitygames.com/creature collection. And yesterday I put it out that I wanted some suggestions to name this bat. And there were quite a few awesome ones, but the one that really made me laugh out loud was Juice Wayne.
Juice Wayne is really, really good.
Juice Wayne is very good.
Yeah, we also had another one from Caboose that I thought was pretty good, which was Walter Melon the Fruit Bat.
Walter Melon is pretty good too.
Yeah.
Walter Melon and Juice Wayne. Those are the 2 that I like the most. Maybe I'll set up a...
They're celebrity magic puns.
Maybe I'll set up a Twitter poll after this for us, but... Juice Wayne that made me laugh a lot.
Yeah, Juice Wayne is really good.
That one's almost as good as the Sword of These Are All White and Black. Or These Are All Black and White. All right, so we're going into game 2. Alan's going to be on the play. Man, he's got to be shaking his head. It's not often do you lose a game after putting Omniscience on the battlefield, especially in that same situation. If he just puts Gristlebrand, it's very unlikely that he loses. Yeah,
that's always the tricky thing with Sneak and Show, though, is a lot of times you'll have Show and Tell and you'll have options in Sneak Attack, Emrakul, Grizzlebrand, and deciding what is the best one to put in that situation is always tricky. I like putting Griselbrand into play first when it's early in the game and you have a high life total, because even if something goes wrong, it's so likely that you're just going to at least have the opportunity to draw 7 and just do it all over again the following turn.
Well, he was already fairly low from the fetches and the Boseiju, so I can see the risk there. But as Alan is mulliganing here and looking at his hand, let's learn a little bit about Andrew Tenjum. So he's part of Team Card Hoarder. He's 23 from Madison, Wisconsin. He has 11 open top 8s with 1 win and 1 invitational top 8. He is the self-proclaimed #1 Taylor Swift fan in the world. He won over $20,000 playing daily fantasy football.
And that was recently.
Yeah, and he's born in South Korea. So, Andrew, that's a lot of money. Maybe you can go get a bunch of Taylor Swift swag.
Maybe you could meet Taylor Swift.
Maybe. I mean, she has to be a fan of Whiteboarded Misty Rainforest.
She's got to be a fan of Magic.
Well, they all are.
Yeah, everyone cool is a fan of Magic.
Right, so Alan's going to lead off with an island. Andrew has a Deathrite Shaman off of an Underground Sea. Let's see what Alan can get going here. We got a Volcanic Island, a Lotus Petal. Are we going to see a Show and Tell here? Based off of what he saw last game from Andrew, he can't be sure if he's on like a Delver or just like a straight control deck. So this is a little risky since Daze is something that could happen.
That said, with Sneak and Show, I do feel like a lot of times you just have to run it out there and say, odds are I'll be okay, and things probably aren't going to get better for me if I wait too long.
All right, so here is going to be a Vendanian Click and a Griselbrand from Alan. Click is going to target Alan, and he has a Force of Will and an Intuition. Andrew's likely going to get rid of that Force of Will and hope to stick a Liliana next turn if possible.
Yeah, Alan is going to be able to draw up to 14 cards to look for another Force of Will. So, you know, Andrew might be able to get this Liliana resolved. But
so that mulligan for Alan was
pretty
Show
good.
and Tell, Lotus Petal, 2 lands, Griselbrand, Force of Will blue card, over 7 cards.
Not bad. After Andrew getting so lucky in the first game, some of that luck had to swing to the other side, you know?
All right, well, Andrew's going to Brainstorm. He's valiantly going to try and fight back against this Griselbrand. Something like Liliana, something like Jace are cards that can actually handle it. Technically Toxic Deluge. He also could just put a Baleful Strix on the battlefield, which would do a pretty good job at holding off Griselbrand.
I remember once being in the situation of Alan Shupe, and my opponent just had like 3 Innocent Bloods in his deck. And I just said, what is going on?
All right, well, here is Andrew's going to use a Verdant Catacombs, going to fall down to 19.
That was Dave Shields. I'll never forget that.
Maybe he's going to get an Underground Sea. Maybe we'll see a Baleful Strix here. If so, Alan's going to draw a whole bunch of cards. Now, he also could just draw into another combo and win.
Yep.
Just, you know, land, Show and Tell, Omniscience, Cunning Wish can just end the game.
You could also just draw into a Force of Will to make it so the Baleful Strix doesn't resolve. But it looks like Andrew's just digging for more interaction.
Andrew's going to Ponder and Shuffle.
And this is really the value of just running out your Sneak and Show as early as possible. Because a lot of times, especially early in the game, your opponent's probably going to have a lot of cantrips. And if you give them time, they're going to turn those cantrips into meaningful interaction. But it's going to take them a turn or two to spin their wheels to actually go through that process.
So Ponder's going to Shuffle. Deathrite Shaman's going to exile Verdant Catacombs. Andrew's going to play another Ponder and Shuffle again. These are not the cards that he's looking for.
Yeah, I think what he'd really like to find is one of his Liliana the Veils. Maybe a Jace the Mind Sculptor would do, but it's going to be hard to get it to resolve. He needs to have some meaningful counter magic backup, likely in the form of Force of Wills.
All right, Andrew will draw off of his Ponder. Alan's going to take his turn. He'll draw a card. Let's see if we get to pay 7 to draw 7 here. There we go. I would do it before I attack, just in case you hit the perfects and can just win this turn.
Yeah.
All right, Alan's going to fall to 13 and draw 7 cards.
I would probably just not waste time and just draw 14.
Well, sometimes you only need 7.
Yeah, but I like winning and just making it rain when I throw my hand up in the air because I got so many cards.
All right, well, there is a Scalding Tarn for Alan. Let's see if he can combo again.
And if he manages to show and tell, put a sneak attack into play, land a Lotus Petal, activate and put Emrakul, this game would just immediately be over. Also, the Omniscience would allow for a combo kill with Cunning Wish that would also end the game immediately. Omniscience into Emrakul would also be another one. So Alan has a lot of ways that he could just end the game immediately.
All right, so Alan's going to attack Andrew down to 12, go up to 20 himself, draw 7 more cards. Down to 13.
And this is one of those situations where now that we're at this point, something crazy needs to happen for Alan to lose.
Yeah, he either needs to brick on a bunch of Force of Wills.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like he even has a Blood Moon, so he could just play Blood Moon here and shut off a bunch of Andrew's mana.
So that's actually a little interesting. It might actually be worth it not to play the Blood Moon, because if you play the Blood Moon, you're revealing that you have it. But you're so likely to win this game. So playing the Blood Moon probably isn't going to have an impact on the outcome of this particular game, but by keeping that information hidden from Andrew, it may be better at catching his opponent by surprise in the following game 3.
Yeah. He's going to discard a bunch, but he's going to be able to have a perfect hand, basically. That kind of happens when you draw 15 cards in one turn.
Yeah.
All right. I'm getting rid of all this. Your turn, Andrew Tenjum.
And so he kept the Blood Moon in his hand, didn't discard it, didn't cast it either. So it looks like Alan is trying to keep that information hidden from Andrew.
All right, Andrew's going to valiantly attack with his...
You do what you got to do.
Vendanian Click, bring Alan down to 10. Looks like we just had a bunch of lands and Omniscience and Impulse for Alan. Creeping Tar Pit is the play and pass the turn back.
Yikes.
And Alan will draw a card for his turn.
Is that an Emrakul?
They are in there.
I think it's just a Volcanic Island. So it's likely he's just going to attack twice and end the game. He can draw 7 more cards if he wants. Probably doesn't need to.
Yeah, Gristlebrand's going to crash in, take Andrew Tenjum down to 5, bring Alan up to 17.
If Alan did draw 7 here, there's a small chance that Andrew could actually kill him, because that Deathrite Shaman, or if he cracks his fetch land and draws 7, Andrew could potentially kill them with a Deathrite Shaman activation and then animating the Creeping Tar Pit and attacking with all 3 of his creatures.
Well, Blood Moon, however, is going to put the nail in that coffin, and Alan Shupe is going to pick up the second game here with his Sneak and Show deck against Andrew Tenjum, who is on Sultai control. Both of these players are at 9-2, so whoever wins this match is going to still be very live for a top 8 and put themselves in good position. I believe X3 will likely top 8 this event as is, so even whoever loses will still be live.
Yep.
But it's nice to have one to give at some point. Do you think we're going to have any sideboard changes here? Any differences in boarding?
Well, it looks like Alan is just shuffling up to present the same 75 or 60 again. But I do know that a lot of people like to take out their Blood Moons on the draw. So there's something worth noting. But it doesn't look like Alan is doing that. He feels it's good on the play or the draw.
This is kind of interesting that he's just not going to re-sideboard even to feign changing his deck, especially after showing Andrew Blood Moon.
Yeah.
So Andrew is likely bringing in, Golgari Charms that he has in his sideboard as ways to interact with those Blood Moon. They also have splash damage against Omniscience and Sneak Attack, but it's just one of the few ways that he can actually answer a Blood Moon.
Yeah, I do think that is 100% true. That said, I know that there can also be a lot of value in just giving your brain a little bit of a rest in between games and making sure that you're just in the perfect mental state for the upcoming games so that you can play as well as possible.
Fair enough. Another way that you can ensure that you are going to be playing as well as possible is to read up on the strategies and all of the tips and tricks and the happenings of the week. So StarCityGames.com weekly newsletter. It is your source for Magic the Gathering news. You can get the latest on the SCG Tour. You can watch the SCG Tour match of the week, receive exclusive deck lists and advice, catch up on all event results, and read an exclusive cardboard crack comic. Best thing? Absolutely free. Go.starcitygames.com/newsletter. That is your source for Magic the Gathering news.
And the newsletter is great. You get to hear a lot of different voices. I've written for it. Chris has written for it. If you were going to read one thing each week, this would be the one thing I would suggest.
I mean, heck, they even have Cedric writing for it.
Yeah, Cedric is great.
It's great stuff. All right, Andrew is going to be on the play here. He did pick up his qualification for the Players' Championship at the end of Season 1.
Yep.
He is currently 5th on our Player of the Year leaderboard, though. All right, he's going to lead off with a Creeping Tar Pit and pass the turn.
And the fact that Andrew gets to be on the play here is pretty important. This is going to give him a chance to cast those ponders to look for a Force of Will, potentially before Alan starts firing stuff off. It's also going to give Andrew a chance to develop his mana and just get ahead on spells and potentially cast those Thoughtseizes before Alan casts the really potent cards that Andrew would want to tag with those Thoughtseizes.
That is sometimes you just get lucky with him to track.
That too.
So Alan's going to lead off with a Flooded Strand. Andrew just has a Bayou and a Deathrite Shaman to add to his battlefield. Alan's going to sacrifice that Flooded Strand on Andrew's end step. Let's see what he casts here. We have the potential for some fireworks here as early as turn 2, something like Land, Lotus Petal, Show and Tell, Ancient Tomb or City of Traders in Show and Tell. And because he has Omniscience and the instant speed kill, this game could be over as early as turn 2.
Yeah, the Sneak and Show deck is one of the reasons it's so good is because not only is its combo relatively mana efficient, but it also has ways to ramp up its mana, making it extremely explosive.
Alan's going to main phase a Ponder, it seems, and Andrew has a Spell Pierce for it. Is Alan thinking about forcing? He's going to Force of Will the Spell Pierce. Maybe he only has a 1-land hand.
Yeah, there's certainly something wrong with Alan's hand if he's going to be Force of Willing to protect his Ponder. So Andrew has got to take note of that and, is probably going to adjust his play accordingly, knowing that there's something wrong with Alan's hand.
Well, neither player mulliganed. So if Alan is that mana light, it has to be an extremely powerful hand where all he needs is another 1 or 2 mana sources to just win the game. It could be something like, Show and Tell, Omniscience, Emrakul with just a bunch of Force of Wills.
Yep.
He does find a Volcanic Island off of that Ponder and passes back to Andrew. Andrew has a Hymn to Turak, though.
And Hymn to Turak is such a beating against these Sneak and Show decks. They really do need a lot of their resources.
Well, Alan is going to Force of Will, pitching a Spell Pierce.
And the Hymn to Turak is still a 2-for-1, so in certain ways, mission accomplished.
Andrew's going to fall to 19 using his Polluted Delta. Let's see what his follow-up is here. If he doesn't have a Force of Will, there's a chance Alan can just win the game next turn.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that was so powerful when the Omniscience deck had Dig Through Time, is you could...
Oh, with Dig Through Time was unreal.
It's like you could make these unfavorable interactions early.
Yeah, and then just gas right back up.
End step Dig Through Time, untap, kill you.
Yeah.
All right, Deathrite Shaman is going to exile the Flooded Strand out of Alan's graveyard. Do we have another hymn? Nope, just a big old Tarmogoyf. We got to win the game with something. Good old country 3-4. Pass the turn back to Alan. Let's see if Alan tries to win the game here.
Yeah, so this would be a great opportunity for Alan to try to make a big move. He knows that he won the last counter war. Andrew's tapped out on mana. He's got the Ancient Tomb to give him access to more mana. We could see something like Show and Tell into Sneak Attack, use the Volcanic Island to activate it, put a big creature into play. There's a number of different things we could see here.
Maybe just hard cast a Sneak Attack?
Could be just hard cast a Sneak Attack.
Going to go to 15 and hope that Andrew doesn't find a Golgari Charm. Sneak Attack will resolve. Pass the turn back to Andrew.
Now Andrew's got a turn to try to make something happen. A Thoughtseize or Hymn to Turak would be a godsend at this point. Vendilion Click would also be quite good.
He could also wasteland the Volcanic Island.
He could wasteland the Volcanic Island also, but he's got to do something. He probably has to assume that something big is going to come out of that sneak attack on the following turn.
Dun dun.
Yeah.
Dun dun.
This is
looming.
This is when you start counting your permanents and thinking about that Annihilator trigger of 6.
We have a ponder for Andrew, so he's looking for something.
It's funny though, sometimes a sneak attack will put something like an Emrakul in play, wipe your opponent's board, knock them down to 3 or 4 life, but then just sort of whiff for a while. If your opponent is able to rebuild quick enough, sometimes it's not the game-winning move that you want it to be.
Deathrite Shaman is very good at that quick rebuild too.
Yeah.
If Andrew is happening to sandbag one for a potential post-Emrakul comeback. Andrew's tanking pretty hard on this ponder and might have something, but it might not be exactly what he's looking for. Maybe it's just more ways to spin his wheels.
It's got to be a tough decision. It looks like Andrew's starting to run out of interaction. So hopefully he can find what he needs. Oh, wow, and a Hymn to Torak to knock out both cards. So Grizzlebrand would have hit the board next turn. Bloodmoon would have potentially knocked Andrew out of plays. And Alan was in great shape, but Andrew just barely found what he needed.
Ooh, and that's even going to grow the Goyf by 2. So he's going to attack for 6. That's going to knock Alan down to 9.
And Andrew can kill him on the following turn. Activate that Creeping Tar Pit. If he hits another land drop and attack with the Deathrite Shaman also, that would be 9.
Off the top. Right off the top. Annihilator
Boom.
Trigger.
Jeez, and Andrew's 1-turn clock is just gone.
That's going to knock Andrew down to 4. Gristlebrand's going to sacrifice on his end step, trigger, shuffle the Emrakul, shuffle the Emrakul and the Gristlebrand back into the deck, along with a couple of cantrips.
What a top deck. Holy smokes.
Man.
You don't go 9-2 for no reason.
Yeah. I'll be 100% honest. I have done that a lot.
Yeah, I have too. I mean, you play Sneak and Show, that's just what happens.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we got on top. Go ahead. Andrew's just playing draw go, no mana sources. Can we find a monster? All right, pass back. So did we find a land for Andrew? We did. He's going to fall down to 3. Maybe we'll see a Deathrite Shaman
And
here.
Andrew can rebuild a lot faster than Alan can. That said, any cantrip is a bunch of live looks.
This is the situation where the traditional Sneak and Show deck with 8 monsters is in a much better, better spot than this hybrid build with only 6.
In order for Alan to make room for the Omniscience and Cunning Wishes, he has had to trim some of his Emrakuls and Grizzlebrands, running only 3 each rather than the normal 4 of each that you usually see in Sneak and Show.
That being said, he does have a copy of Intuition, which turns into whatever monster he wants.
Yeah. 3 is the magic number with Intuition.
All right. Andrew is going to Brainstorm. Ooh, Spell
And
Pierce
Alan's
for
got
Alan.
some meaningful interaction.
That is rough. Just going to draw and pass. Your island should be untapped, Mr. Shupe. Here's another Brainstorm from Andrew.
And this is one of the great things about Legacy. A few turns ago, we had one person threatening, potentially 9 points worth of damage, and now we are just back to square one.
Andrew just found a Pithing Needle with this Brainstorm. Does he have a second mana source?
That is a worthy top deck.
Oh, man. He does. It's a Wasteland.
Brutal.
Oh, man. Do we have another Spell Pierce?
Now Andrew knows that he's probably safe for a while. Sometimes these Sneak and Show decks have like a 1-of Wipe Away or something else like that, but Andrew probably can safely assume that the likely way for Alan to win now is to show and tell. So now Andrew can fight a counter war. He can also knock out Alan's mana, putting him even farther behind. Andrew still doesn't have any pressure, but I still think he's doing all right given the circumstances.
He definitely has a shot. He's not a top deck away from dead anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, but there's a Blood Moon for Alan. That's going to completely lock Andrew out of this game.
Yeah, I believe Andrew has
no basics.
0 basic lands in his deck, so a Blood Moon would be game over.
He's going to go fetch out a basic island, so he has access to 2 of those. This game has been incredible.
This has been a wild ride.
I was going to say, it'll be very disheartening for Alan Shupe to lose game 1 with Omniscience on the battlefield and then lose game 3 with Sneak Attack on the battlefield after attacking with an Emrakul.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Andrew has something like a Spell Pierce or a Force of Will. Spell Pierce won't do it now.
Well, there's a City of
Does
Traders.
Andrew have a Force of Will? He needs a Force of Will to stay in this game.
Oh, he does not have it. He's just going to pass back to Andrew. And he draws a Force of Will for the turn.
Oh, jeez.
That'll let him stop whatever Alan decides to do. But Alan has Emrakul in his deck, so he's not going to be able to get decked. However, it's only 20 minutes on the clock. Alan still has to try and kill his opponent.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's really anything Andrew can do at this point. I'm looking through his deck list. He doesn't have any basic lands.
At some point, Alan can just hardcast an Emrakul. I would be playing lightning fast at this point.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would just draw, not even look at my card if it's not show and tell.
To be fair, Alan might think that Andrew has a forest and a swamp in his deck.
Sure. Well, that is certainly what Andrew is representing. Obviously, trying to keep that information secret from future opponents.
All right, so we just got to discard and pass.
I really hope we don't sit here for 18 minutes waiting for one of these players to do something.
All right, Alan's going to pass to Andrew. Creeping Tar Pit and pass.
Creeping Tar Pit does still come into play tapped, despite the Blood Moon. And the world really is Alan's oyster at this point.
Just has to find a way to close this out.
So what do you think of this Sneak and Show deck? Do you think you'll play it the next time you play Legacy?
I'm definitely going to be playing Sneak and Show. I haven't decided if I want to move to the hybrid version or not.
Yeah. Have you tested it much?
I have. It's much more powerful than the traditional Sneak and Show, but less consistent.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about the Sneak and Show deck is just always trying to win on turns 2 or 3, sometimes 1. So I have to say, for me personally, I don't like this version quite as much, but I'll certainly have to try it out at some point. Certainly before my next Legacy tournament.
And Alan does have 1 copy of Wipe Away in his sideboard that he can find with Cunning Wish. Here we're just going to see a Show and Tell, though. So this is going to let Andrew put something onto the battlefield.
And that actually is a great reason for Andrew to stay in this game, even though he can't cast anything. He can still put something into play with a Show and Tell. If Alan just puts something into play that doesn't quite win the game, and Andrew gets to put in a Deathrite Shaman, he can potentially rebuild his access to mana, and then potentially Abrupt Decay this Blood Moon. So Andrew really is playing to an out here.
All right, well, Alan's going to put Omniscience onto the battlefield with his Show and Tell. He's going to cast a Gristlebrand using that Omniscience.
And Andrew can try to Force of Will this Gristlebrand. Even though it's free, it's not uncounterable.
Andrew's going to Force of Will the Gristlebrand, falling to 2. Getting rid of a Ponder. Alan will let it be countered. Does he have another monster? He has an Emrakul, and we're going to trigger an extra turn.
And that is
Andrew is
game.
going to extend the hand.
A well-fought match by Andrew Tenjum, but Alan Shupe just takes it.
Well, Alan's going to take that match 2 games to 1. That was great.
Yeah, really, really good.
Oh, man.
Exciting match, really back and forth. Both players had some serious haymakers. Alan Shupe wiping Andrew's board with his Emrakul right before Andrew had the potential to attack with a lethal force. And then Andrew, almost battled back into it. He got that Deathrite Shaman into play off of the Show and Tell. He had the Force of Will for the Grizzlebrand, but Alan just had that extra fatty, that extra Emrakul to win it.
Wow, that was